James Craig Collar's story unfolds like the pages of a tragic, dark novel where obsession, betrayal, and violence intersect with devastating consequences. His descent into madness and the brutal killings that followed shocked the quiet community of Burlingame, Kansas, and etched his name into the annals of true crime infamy. James Craig Collar, known as Craig, was a respected figure in his professional life. Born in 1963, he worked as a municipal utilities director, a position that garnered him admiration for his technical expertise and managerial skills. But beneath the facade of a successful career and family man lay simmering tensions and dark impulses that would ultimately destroy everything he had built. Craig married Karen Harkness in the 1980s, and together they raised 3 children: Emily, Lauren, and Sean. To outsiders, the Collars appeared to be a typical middle-class family, thriving in suburban comfort. However, the cracks in their marriage began to widen as Craig's controlling nature and emotional volatility came to light. Behind closed doors, Karen struggled with Craig's need to control every aspect of her life. Friends recalled how Karen's once vibrant personality seemed to dim over the years, overshadowed by her husband's domineering behavior. By the mid-2000s, Craig and Karen's marriage was in turmoil. Craig's domineering behavior alienated Karen, who sought independence and emotional support elsewhere. This led her to begin an affair with a woman named Sunny Reese, an act that Craig viewed as an unforgivable betrayal. The discovery of this relationship marked a turning point in Craig's psyche. He became consumed by rage, jealousy, and a desire for retribution. Friends of the family noticed his increasing paranoia. He would often bring up Karen's infidelity in casual conversations, unable to let go of the perceived humiliation. Craig's behavior grew increasingly erratic. Friends and family noted his obsession with Karen's infidelity, which he perceived as a direct assault on his masculinity and identity. Instead of seeking counseling or a peaceful resolution, Craig began to spiral into a dark fantasy of revenge. He obsessed over details of Karen's new relationship, often tracking her movements and questioning their children about her activities. His anger turned into a simmering, relentless fixation that overshadowed every other aspect of his life. By the fall of 2009, Karen had filed for divorce. This legal step seemed to push Craig further into the abyss. He believed Karen was trying to strip him of his role as the head of the family. Court documents later revealed his attempts to control their finances and limit Karen's access to their shared resources. Despite the divorce proceedings, Craig held onto the twisted hope that he could somehow regain control over Karen and their family dynamic. Thanksgiving 2009 was meant to be a time of family and gratitude, but for the Collar family it became a nightmare. Craig and Karen were living separately, with Karen staying at her grandmother Dorothy White's home in Burlingame. Dorothy, a beloved matriarch in her 80s, had welcomed Karen and the children into her home as they navigated the painful separation. Dorothy's house had become a sanctuary, a place where Karen and her daughters could begin to rebuild their lives. On November 28th, Craig arrived at the home, armed and fueled by a deadly resolve. Witnesses later described how he had spent weeks planning the attack, purchasing a firearm and mapping out his strategy. In his mind, this was not just a crime of passion but a calculated act of vengeance. Craig believed that by erasing Karen and their daughters, he could end the pain he felt and reclaim a sense of power. Craig stormed into the house, where Karen, Dorothy, and Craig's daughters, Emily and Lauren, were gathered. His youngest child, Sean, was elsewhere at the time, narrowly escaping the impending carnage. Craig methodically executed his plan, shooting Karen, Dorothy, Emily, and Lauren in cold blood. Each victim was left lifeless, their futures extinguished by Craig's rage. The scene inside Dorothy's home was one of unimaginable horror. Investigators later described the chilling methodical nature of Craig's actions. Karen was his first target, struck down as she tried to shield her daughters. Dorothy, frail and unable to defend herself, was murdered in her living room. Emily and Lauren, barely into their teens, were gunned down as they attempted to flee. Craig showed no mercy, his anger consuming every vestige of humanity. After committing the murders, Craig fled the scene, leaving a trail of horror in his wake. He was apprehended the following day, showing little remorse for his actions. During his trial, Craig's defense argued that he was mentally unstable, driven to the edge by the breakdown of his marriage and Karen's affair. However, prosecutors painted a picture of a cold, calculating killer who had planned the massacre as a twisted form of revenge. The courtroom was packed throughout the trial. Family members, friends, and neighbors attended to show support for the victims and seek justice. Testimonies revealed the extent of Craig's controlling behavior, with former colleagues and acquaintances recounting incidents that showcased his volatile temper. Sonny Reese, Karen's romantic partner, took the stand, describing the fear and harassment Karen endured in the months leading up to the murders. The jury deliberated for just over 2 hours before finding Craig guilty of capital murder. In 2011, he was sentenced to death, a punishment reserved for the most heinous crimes. The sentence brought a measure of closure to the surviving family members and the community, but the scars of his actions would linger for years. Experts have since analyzed Craig's actions, attempting to understand what led a seemingly successful man to commit such horrific crimes. Many pointed to his narcissistic tendencies and inability to handle rejection. Craig's need for control, coupled with his deep-seated insecurities, created a toxic brew that exploded into violence. His refusal to seek help or confront his emotional issues highlights the dangers of unchecked mental health struggles. The case also reignited conversations about domestic violence and the signs that often precede such tragedies. Karen's friends later admitted they had noticed red flags in Craig's behavior but didn't fully understand the danger he posed. Advocates for domestic abuse victims have since used the Collar case to emphasize the importance of recognizing and addressing warning signs. The Collar murders serve as a grim reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked rage and obsession. Craig's inability to accept the end of his marriage and his refusal to seek help for his emotional turmoil led to an unspeakable tragedy. His actions not only ended the lives of 4 innocent people, but also shattered the lives of those who loved them. Today, Craig sits on death row, a stark symbol of the darkness that can consume a person when they allow hatred and vengeance to overtake their humanity. His story is a chilling cautionary tale of how even the most outwardly successful individuals can harbor demons capable of unimaginable destruction. In the quiet town of Burlingame, the memory of Karen, Dorothy, Emily, and Lauren lives on in the hearts of those who knew them. Their lives were stolen in an act of senseless violence, but their legacy endures as a reminder to cherish every moment and to confront our inner struggles before they manifest into something unthinkable. Community members have since established scholarships and memorials in honor of the victims, ensuring their names are not forgotten. Emily and Lauren's former school holds an annual event to raise awareness about domestic violence, a poignant tribute to the lives lost. Dorothy's church continues to speak about her unwavering kindness, reminding attendees of the power of compassion, even in the darkest of times. As Craig remains behind bars, his case serves as a grim testament to the ripple effects of violence. The Collar family's story is one of profound loss, but also resilience. Through advocacy, remembrance, and community support, their memory becomes a beacon of hope for those who seek to prevent similar tragedies in the future. LaShawn Collar, the sole surviving child, carries the weight of his family's tragedy. At the time of the murders, Sean was away, likely sparing him from his father's wrath. Now an adult, Sean has occasionally spoken about the impact of that fateful night on his life. His reflections are filled with pain, but also a determination to honor his mother and sisters by living a meaningful life. In interviews, Sean has expressed a deep sense of loss and the lifelong challenge of grappling with the trauma inflicted by his father. He recalls his mother and sisters not as victims, but as vibrant, loving individuals who deserved so much more than the fate they met. "I try to live each day in a way that would make them proud," Sean has said. "Their lives were taken, but their spirit remains a part of me." Sean's survival came at a cost: the emotional burden of being the last remaining member of his immediate family. He has channeled his pain into advocacy, becoming an outspoken supporter of domestic violence awareness initiatives. Through speeches and partnerships with organizations, he shares his story to highlight the warning signs that were overlooked in his own family's tragedy. "If even one family can avoid what we went through, then my voice has served a purpose," he has remarked during community events. Sean also describes the complex emotions he feels toward his father. While he condemns Craig's actions and expresses no desire to maintain a relationship, he admits that the shadow of his father's crimes will always follow him. I will never understand how he could do what he did. But my focus is on the lives that were lived, not the one that destroyed them. Craig Collar's trial was a complex and emotionally charged affair. His defense team argued that he was not in his right mind at the time of the murders, citing severe depression and emotional instability caused by his crumbling marriage. They presented psychologists who testified about Craig's mental state, describing him as a man spiraling out of control, unable to process the betrayal he felt. However, the prosecution painted a different picture. Through careful documentation and witness testimony, they argued that Craig's actions were premeditated. They presented evidence of his meticulous planning from purchasing the firearm to mapping out the attack. Witnesses recounted chilling conversations with Craig in the months leading up to the murders, where he hinted at his growing resentment and desire for revenge. The jury's swift verdict of guilty reflected the overwhelming evidence against him. In sentencing him to death, the court delivered a rare but emphatic rebuke of his actions. While the sentence brought some closure to the community and surviving family members, it also reignited debates about the efficacy and morality of capital punishment. For some, Craig's death sentence symbolized justice for the lives he took for others. It was a grim reminder of the cyclical nature of violence. As Craig Collar sits on death row, his name remains a symbol of the destructive power of unchecked emotions and the devastating consequences of domestic violence. His actions shattered the lives of many, leaving a scar on the community of Burlingame that will not easily fade. For those who knew and loved Karen, Dorothy, Emily, and Lee, and Lauren, the pain of their loss is a daily reality. Yet their memories persist, preserved through stories, photographs, and acts of remembrance. Sean, the surviving beacon of the Collar family, continues to honor their legacy through his resilience and advocacy. He reminds others that even in the face of unimaginable darkness, it is possible to find purpose and strive toward healing. I carry them with me every day, Sean has said. They are my strength, and their love guides me forward. In the years since the tragedy, the Collar family's story has become a sobering reminder of the need for vigilance, compassion, and action. It has inspired conversations about how to better support victims of domestic violence, address mental health challenges, and prevent similar tragedies. Their story is not just one of loss, but also of the enduring human capacity to heal and fight for a better future. As time moves forward, the memories of Karen, Dorothy, Emily, and Lauren serve as a call to action for a world where such tragedies are less likely to occur, a world where love and understanding triumph over hatred and violence.